Breaking news has surfaced about President-elect Donald J. Trump's recent comments regarding former President Jimmy Carter. And once again, Trump's tactlessness and penchant for dishonesty are on full display. In an incident that highlights the stark contrast between the grace of a man like Jimmy Carter and the self-serving nature of Donald Trump, the latter made comments that were not only disrespectful, but also exposed his compulsive need to fabricate narratives to boost his ego. During a campaign stop, Trump was asked whether he planned to attend Jimmy Carter's funeral, and his response quickly spiraled into another self-inflicted credibility disaster. Trump confidently stated, "I'll be there. We were invited." But when pressed further by reporters about whether he had spoken to any members of the Carter family, he hesitated and said, "I'd rather not say." That single response unraveled his assertion, laying bare the truth that he had likely not been invited at all. This moment was a microcosm of Trump's broader personality flaws, his inability to resist lying even when the truth would have sufficed. Instead of gracefully sidestepping the question or responding diplomatically, Trump impulsively claimed an invitation that he almost certainly did not receive. The need to bolster his ego was so overwhelming that he couldn't resist embellishing the story, only to be caught in his own web of deceit moments later. The Carter family's well-documented disdain for Trump makes his claim of being invited even more implausible. Jimmy Carter, a man known for his humility, compassion, and decades of humanitarian work, stands in stark contrast to Trump's brash and vindictive demeanor. Carter's legacy as a statesman and humanitarian is rooted in sincerity, while Trump's reputation is characterized by dishonesty and self-interest. The two men could not be more different, and Trump's attempt to associate himself with the Carter family in any way reeks of opportunism. What makes Trump's comments even more egregious is their timing. Carter, who recently turned 100 years old, is being celebrated as the longest-living U.S. president and a symbol of decency in public life. While the nation reflects on Carter's contributions, Trump saw an opportunity to insert himself into the narrative, using Carter's milestone as a backdrop to take jabs at President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. During the same campaign event, Trump mocked Carter's presidency, calling it the worst in history, until, according to him, Biden's administration took that title. He then pivoted to insult Harris, branding her as the worst vice president ever. This type of rhetoric not only highlights Trump's lack of decorum, but also reinforces his pattern of deflecting criticism by attacking others. Rather than offering substantive policies or solutions, Trump resorts to belittling opponents and rewriting history to serve his narrative. Trump's comments about Carter were particularly tasteless because they came on Carter's 100th birthday, a milestone that should have been celebrated with reverence and respect. Instead, Trump turned it into a political punchline, revealing once again his inability to honor the dignity of others. Carter, despite facing his own share of political challenges, has earned widespread admiration for his post-presidency humanitarian work, including efforts to combat poverty, build homes for the underprivileged, and promote peace through the Carter Center. The episode surrounding Trump's claim about attending Carter's funeral encapsulates what Americans have come to expect from him, an obsession with image over substance. Even when faced with a straightforward question, Trump felt compelled to lie rather than admit the truth. This behavior is emblematic of his larger pattern of dishonesty, which has been a hallmark of his political career. What's especially alarming is that Trump's response to the funeral question wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a broader theme of grievance and revenge. In the same speech, Trump made veiled threats about seeking retribution if reelected, implying that he would use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies, including President Biden and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who led the case that resulted in Trump's conviction on 34 felony counts. Trump's talk of retribution underscores the dangers of his potential return to power. His comments signal a willingness to weaponize the justice system for personal vendettas, further eroding democratic norms. This rhetoric is deeply troubling, particularly as it mirrors the behavior of authoritarian leaders who prioritize consolidating power over upholding the rule of law. The contrast between Trump and Carter extends beyond personality traits to their respective visions for America. Carter dedicated his life to service, focusing on uplifting others and fostering global peace. Trump, by contrast, has consistently focused on self-promotion and dividing the country along political, racial, and cultural lines. Carter's humility and dedication to the public good stand in stark opposition to Trump's divisiveness and ego-driven agenda. As Trump continues his campaign for re-election, his remarks about Carter serve as a reminder of what's at stake. The prospect of another Trump presidency raises concerns about the erosion of democratic norms, the targeting of political opponents, and the perpetuation of lies to serve personal ambitions. For Americans who value honesty, integrity, and decency, Carter's legacy represents a standard worth preserving, a standard that Trump has consistently failed to meet. Trump's behavior at this campaign stop also highlights a broader trend of disrespect for American institutions and traditions. By exploiting Carter's legacy to attack his political rivals and inflate his own importance, Trump demonstrated a lack of reverence for the office of the presidency and the values it represents. Carter's lifetime of service exemplifies the best of America, while Trump's antics continue to showcase its worst impulses. In reflecting on this episode, it's clear that Trump's need for validation and his inability to tell the truth remain defining features of his political persona. Whether discussing Carter's funeral or threatening retribution against his opponents, Trump's actions are a troubling preview of what could come if he returns to the White House. The American people must remain vigilant and prioritize leaders who embody the principles of honesty, humility, and service, qualities that Jimmy Carter exemplified and that Donald Trump continues to undermine. This story is not just about one lie at a campaign stop. It's about the broader implications of Trump's dishonesty and egotism. It's about the choice facing Americans in the upcoming election between the values of decency and service, represented by leaders like Carter, and the values of self-interest and deceit, embodied by Trump. The contrast could not be clearer, and the stakes could not be higher.